Can I be honest with you? I am bad news. I'm not your friend. I'm not going to help you. I'm going to break you. Any questions?
And welcome back. The film Zero Dark 30 has been in theaters for several weeks now, and of course, there has been no stranger to controversy. The film depicts the manhunt for Osama bin Laden and seems to argue that torture played a significant role in finding the hideout of the al-Qaeda leader. Of course, evidence in the real world shows that torture provided no such useful information. But despite the outrage from those on the left and the right, who were horrified by Bush's war crimes and enraged today that these war crimes are now being justified on the big screen, despite all that, Americans keep flocking to see the movie. In fact, just this last weekend, Zero Dark 30 raked in nearly $16 million at the box office, bringing its total gross to more than $54 million. But now that the movie is a box office smash, doesn't that make criticism of it all the more important? Joining me now is Danny Goldberg. He is the president of Gold V Entertainment and author of the book Bumping into Geniuses: My Life Inside the Rock and Roll Business. Danny, welcome.
Hey, Tom.
Great to see you. The film's director, Catherine Bigelow, recently said to the Los Angeles Times, "Confusing depiction with endorsement is the first step toward chilling any American artist's ability." What do you think about that?
Well, I agree with that, except it has nothing to do with the criticism I have of her film. I've always argued, I work with artists, and I've been a big defender of not just the legal, but the moral rights of artists to use metaphor and to express their ideas in a creative context without being held to some literalistic standard. I hate those things when they have a list of 300 murders committed on television and so on and so forth. But in her case, she was propagandized by a faction in the CIA, according to the journalist Michael Hastings, and that's an allegation that no one has denied. And it was a propaganda effort by people that are trying to justify and defend the use of torture post 9/11. I lived in New York when 9/11 happened, and I can empathize with how freaked out people in the government must have been. But the idea of torturing prisoners is a terrible idea. It was terrible at Abu Ghraib. It's something that we don't need to be safe. And I think she was a victim of two lies in the movie. The little lie is what you just said, which is that the actual pursuit and capture of bin Laden was the result of torture, which is implied as I process the film. There are people that say that's not what the film says. That's how I experience the film. The bigger lie is the idea that we need to torture prisoners for us to be safe. And it's very alarming because this isn't some abstract argument about the Civil War. It's going on at a time when there's a debate within the intelligence community, within law enforcement, within the military. And the American public, because of this propaganda effort that I believe acolytes of Dick Cheney have been in charge of, has changed their opinion. In 2007, there was a poll that showed that 53% of Americans were opposed to torture under any circumstances of prisoners. And by 2012, that was down to 34%, a drop of 19%. And I believe it's because of these constant messages through different advocacy and sometimes in the entertainment world, propaganda, to convince Americans that they just can't be physically safe unless people are tortured. That's a lie. It's immoral. It undermines our ability to be safe, I think, and it undermines the soul of the country. So I respect her as an artist. I understand why people like the movie. There's members of my family, my kids, both really found it an entertaining movie. But there's a lie in the core of it, which is really corrosive to public policy.
The CIA rather famously and loudly released my recollection is it was something like a 3,000-page report, basically saying torture didn't do any good, that we didn't find anything useful as a consequence of torture. And my recollection is that report came out long before the film came out. If she had been propagandized, or the makers of this movie had been propagandized, wouldn't there be a moment of, holy cow, we shouldn't have done that, let's get back to editing or something?
You know, it's hard to be a filmmaker. It's hard to be an artist. I am not concerned with judging her process as an artist. I'm concerned with the debate in our society about how prisoners are treated, and that we, as ethical human beings and as Americans, shouldn't torture people. George Washington didn't have to torture people to beat the British. We didn't have to torture Germans to beat the Nazis. And we don't have to torture people today to be safe as a country. The book, 500 Days by Kurt Eichenwald, the New York Times reporter, describes the debate between members of the FBI and some factions of the CIA about interrogation. It's an argument going on in the government. There are many people, a lot of them lifetime military people, law enforcement people, Republicans, who are profoundly against torture, both because of its lack of effectiveness in many instances and because of the moral consequences to the society. But there are people who are justifying themselves for what they did post 9/11. And she was hoodwinked by those people, chose to believe them, and I think it's a fatal flaw of the film morally.
Yeah, remarkable. Danny Goldberg, thank you so much.
Thank you.